Hello, my fellow readers. This is Dark Symphony 777. Oh, good God, I'm tired. With another fan fiction review. As always, a link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, and leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts of the story. So, the story I am reviewing today is Uncharted Lands by Team Juniper. Someone's a Ruby fan. Alright then. It is a Vocaloid fanfiction. Now, I am well aware of Vocaloid. I think Vocaloid is like one of those things where everyone kind of knows it nowadays. Unless you're like really old. Like, I know, like, I think like everyone has heard it of at least Miku. Like, I've even listened to some Vocaloid songs. Rolling Girl, obviously. Stargazer. Ripperly, Seraphim in the Ring. My favorite is actually Cheap Time Disco. Coincidentally, that's a Luca story, and this happens to be a Luca story. Coincidence? I think not. No, I'm kidding. It is. So, let's just get into the story. So, the story is basically just a very simple fantasy story. I just realized how stupid that sounded in my head. So, there's more to it than that. So, long story short, Luca, Megari Luca, was this evil vampire lord that ruled over that was more or less kind of encroaching over, slowly taking over an entire country. She had puppet rulers and stuff like that. She did all that. She lost to a hero named Gumi, and then got kind of kicked out of her own country, goes to a land called, I cannot remember. I cannot remember the name of the country. It's been a while since I actually finished reading this, and I forgot certain details. More just minor details, like the name of the country that I think she lives in. I know most of the important stuff, like the plot and the characters and stuff like that. But, small details like, oh, where are they going, the cities, and stuff like that. And some of the minor characters are gonna skip my mind. I hope that I actually wanted to record this specific review last week, but I got sick, and I kind of lost my voice, so hence why there wasn't a video out last week. So anyway, Luca, hoping to get back her power, travels through this other continent with a bunch of bandits. And then she runs into Miku, this little twin-tailed, bright-eyed, naive warrior who just wants to help people. And so Miku, thinking that Luca is basically a prisoner, and Luca decided, I'm just going to go with this. It's like, yes, I am a prisoner. Come beat these guys up. And Miko's like, okay, I'm gonna save the maiden. And then basically kills all the bandits. And then Luca lies to Miku over who she is. Like, oh, I'm trying to get back home. Help me get back home. And she's like, I'm gonna just kill her when I get the chance. And the story basically just them going to a town, helping out the town with a quest, and then moving on. And they kind of grow together. They get more companions. They get Kaido, who is a necromancer, who's forced to become a vampire by what was her name? Miko, I believe her name is. I can't remember if it's Mito or Miko. I'm still kind of recovering from sick. Thankfully, I got my voice back. And Sanako, who comes from a family of werewolves and stuff like that. And it basically kind of repeats. They go to a town, they do a little mission that kind of helps Miku and Luca kind of get close together, and then they fall. And then Miku and Luca start falling in love. Honestly, the plot is kind of the weakest part of the story. I do admire that I admire really cliche, this is just the most bog standard, generic fantasy romance you could think of. It doesn't really do anything. And the way the story is structured, it doesn't really inspire a lot of branching out or creativity. Maybe because I think this story was actually meant to be very experimental. I'll get more into that when I get to the writing, so just wait 1 second. I do appreciate the fact that, it's like the author's not trying to do anything drastically different, and basically just trying to make it as cliche as possible. Like, the author's kind of, not completely, but kind of leaning on the cliches. Like, he knows this is, like, generic. The author doesn't care. I'm going to do it anyway. and just has some little fun by giving us some at least good enough characters. Like, I like the characters. You have Miku, who basically starts out as a typical, very naive, very kind of out there adventurer. She basically just wants to go around helping people because she just thinks it's a good thing to do. And then she hangs out with Luca, and they go on this adventure, and she kind of becomes a little more hardened over time and she realizes that, there are grades. She was so obsessed with seeing everything in black and white, but then going on this adventure with Luca makes her see everything in that there are shades of gray as well. She cuts her twin tails off, and she actually, so she can wear a helmet, because she wants to protect Luca better, and she basically wants to be there, and it's really nice. Excuse me, I'm actually burping. Luca is basically Miss Hoity-Toity. She's basically, I'm gonna talk down to you, but she's mad. How to describe Luca? Like, how do I describe Luca? She's over the top. She thinks she's better than everyone, but when something kind of hurts her wound, she's willing to just drag hers down to their level to just say, no, I'm better than you. It's like, there's a part in the story where Kaido decides to challenge Luca to chess. Luca's not buying it at first. Kaido kind of calls her out being chicken, and she's like, oh, it's on. And then they basically just have a big chess game. Sanako is basically a very cautious girl. She comes from a family of werewolves that are really uncontrolled, that their werewolf size are just completely uncontrollable. So she has to lock herself up every single midnight out of fear of inadvertently hurting people, because, again, her werewolf side she literally cannot control it until like near the very end, where she gets like a potion that allows her to control it for like an hour or two. And finally, Kaido, who's basically the straight man to everything. Like, he's just the guy. He's just wondering what he's doing with his life. He wants to go on an adventure because he's bored, and he's like a necromancer, and he sees the weirdness happening with Miku and Luca. It's like, this is just like a girl kind of hanging out with the vampire, and they're like completely okay with it. Can I join? Sure. What do you do? I'm a necromancer. Can I join? Yeah, sure. We don't mind if you do necromancy. Sweet. And they basically, it's very, they're very basic characters. There's not really a lot to talk about in the story, because a lot of this stuff is basic, but very, very serviceable. So, it's not even 10 minutes. I'm already halfway through it. Oh boy. Oh, this is one of those stories. Okay. But now we get to the main thing. And the reason why I think the story was experimental. The writing. It's first person. Here's the thing. There are two parts in this story that are in third person, because how the story is structured is it goes from Luca's point of view to Miku's point of view, and then just constantly switches between the two. This is done from a pragmatic reason, because the author admitted in one of the chapters they're not good at writing fight scenes. So it's very practical for the author to switch to, when a fight scene's about to happen, the author reaches a suitable point to switch point of views, focus on the character that's not fighting, so that way when it happens off screen. You don't actually see the fights. So, like, the part where they enter a town whose to the mining town, and the mine is controlled by a big ogre that's killing everyone. Miku decides to go, and at the time when they enter, it's Miku's point of view. But when Miku's about to leave for the mines, the chapter ends and it goes to Luca. So that way you don't see what actually happens to Miku. You just see the aftermath, like her nearly dying and Luca getting completely worried and wanting to help heal her and stuff like that. It's a very simple, like I said, it's very, very basic, but very, very serviceably well done. It's well written. It's fine for what it is. Here's why I think it's experimental. When the author does the third person, because there's two specific parts where it does third person, you can clearly tell a very distinct improvement of quality in the specifically third person parts of the story that weren't in the first person perspective. So it kind of led me to believe that the author wanted to try a long-term first-person story just as an experiment. So that's what I think Uncharted Lands is. It's not meant to be good. It's not meant to be bad. It's just the author thinking, I want to see how I can handle a first-person narrative and kind of see how well I can do with that. Like, as an experiment, it's well done. Like, I don't have any complaints. The problem is I don't have anything good to say about it. I don't have anything bad to say about it. It's really just an average story across the board. It's an average plot. Like I said, it's very repetitive. They just go Miku and then Luca and then Kato and then Sonico, all four of them. They kind of just go to a town. They help out the town. They leave. And Miku and Luca kind of get closer together every single time. The characters are very basic, but they're still good. Like, there's just nothing outstanding to talk about them because they're just very, very basic. Not to mention Kaido and Sanako kind of get shafted like a lot, mainly because the story just focused pretty much exclusively on Miku and Luca. They are a factor. I mean, Sanako doesn't really appear until near the halfway point. So it kind of cuts into what the author does with Sanako specifically. Kaido kind of shows up way earlier. I think he shows up around chapter 13, 14. Very early, like not around before a quarter of the story has passed. So it's fine. Everything is just a solid average story, but that kind of hinders the story too because it's just not really a lot to talk about because there's only so much you can do and say in variations of they go to a town, they help the town, Miku and Luca get closer, they leave, repeat. So there's only so much you can say of the variation of that. And the author does try his best by making every single situation different enough, which leads us to the story's only real downside being the other half of this part, being the pacing. The story is very fast-paced. Like, the story is just under 200,000, and I finished the story in 2 days because I didn't even realize how fast because I was just going so fast-paced that I didn't really know what was going on at points. There was times where it would have made more sense to kind of slow down, like the whole part where we're back to the ogre, like when Miku's kind of healing. I think it would have been better if it was kind of slow, if it was slowed down at least a little bit, so that way you can at least kind of get to know the gravity of the situation, maybe explore the town a little bit. But it focused exclusively on Luca, healing Miku, and then getting closer. Also, the fact that we didn't see... I have to mention the fact that each chapter was exclusively towards either Luca or Miku. So it's not like they cut halfway through the chapter, and they kind of give us the other person's thought process on the whole thing halfway through it. No, it's just one entire chapter is Luca, one chapter is Miku, and then it just repeat. still sick. Okay. I got some water. I drank some water. Okay, back, where was I? Oh, yeah. The entire chapter was dedicated to just one point of view, and that sometimes kind of hindered it, because there are certain parts where it would have benefited if we saw the same situation from both point of views. Like, okay, so there's a part where Luca, it's the end of the first continent, like when they're about to leave, and they got a mission from the Earl of the city telling us that, hey, we got some bandits. We don't know if they're up to any good, but ever since they showed up, people have been disappearing. We don't really know what's going on. Okay, they're in this cave nearby. Okay. Where was I? Because I had to deal with the stupidity that was my family. Oh, yeah. Okay. So, they were given a mission by the Earl to explore this cave. The Earl basically, so we go explore this cave, check to see if these bandits are the ones doing everything, and come back. And then when you're done dealing with whether or not they're the good guy, they're actually responsible or not. Just come after that. Come back. So they go to the cave, and they enter a room, and they see all the walls are surrounded by these cages full of basically half-dead girls. And they realize it's a trap. The leader of the bandits has earth magic, locks them in, drugs them, and basically start torturing them. Basically wants to torture you, so they basically drug them all, put them in a cage, and when they wake up, they grab Miku and Luca, and they take them to the thing. They basically say that we're just gonna torture you, because they realize that Luca might be a vampire. At least I think. Like I said, I would have remembered the details more if I was able to record it last week, but okay. So the leader heats up her knife, and then slowly plunges it down. The bandit leader slowly drags it down Luca's cheek, and the whole point is from Luca's point of view. So it's like she's still talking about how hot it is, how much it hurts. It would have benefited from showing Miku's side of the whole thing as well. Like, I just think that scene would have been so much better. And this is not the only thing. There's a lot of parts throughout the story that would have benefited from showing both sides of the point of views from Miku and Lucas. I just think it would have been slightly better. That's why I said I think that's another reason why I think this is experimental, because sometimes it benefits from showing the same scene from different point of views, just to round out your answers, especially since the story does focus on Miku and Luca specifically. So yeah, that's fine. Grammar errors. I didn't see any grammar errors. It's been I think there was one grammar error. But it's fine. I'm not a grammar error person. Just saying it. But other than that, it's fine. It's solid. The story is solid but unspectacular. Would I recommend it? I would, if you're a fan of Miku and Luca. It is a shipping story. It's like a romance, Miku and Luca. The author, if anything else, he wrote them pretty well, and kind of made them very touchy-feely. And it felt very natural. It was very fun. It was entertaining with how much they kind of fell in love with each other, and made it very natural in a first-person point of view. For an experiment, I would say, if the whole goal of this story was to write a first-person romance story, and you wanted to see how you would write two characters kind of falling in love through their point of views, job well done. It's not the best thing. It's not the best story. It's just a middle of the road story. So I cannot complain. So I would recommend it if you're a fan of that. I don't really have a favorite part, mainly because there's just nothing that stands out. There's really just nothing. What would I change? Of the story right now, honestly, there's really nothing that would really need to be changed. I know this is like my expertise only goes so far, but I think even if it's like an average story, there's nothing really much you can do with it. Unless the author decides to rewrite the story, like leave this up here for like archive's sake, and then rewrites the entire, does like a separate version, but in third person. And I think it's gotta make me curious. What would this story be like if it was a third person story? That would actually be very, very curious about that. It'd be interesting. So. Yeah, that is my review on Uncharted Lands. Pretty short. I just wish there was more to talk about. Yeah, this is kind of the bad thing with certain fan fictions. Like certain fan fictions, you talk about a lot of stuff. This fan fictions like this, there's just not a lot to talk about. It's good. It's good. Like I said, I still recommend it. It's still a good enough read. Very experimental. I would actually am curious to see if the author would just completely write a separate version of the story, but in third person. I actually like to see that because I think if the story was written in third person, how would it fare? Oh wait. There is one thing I would change. I would just simply have certain parts of the story tell the parts from both sides, but from both Miku and Luca's point of view. That's just it. Like it doesn't have to be every single story. Like certain parts, like when Luca's being tortured by the bandit leader, the fight at the end where they're fighting that wizard. When they go and visit, there's not really a lot. Maybe when they first meet, it would just be that would ultimately be up to the author's preference to see where he could put them the other side into it, and then it kind of be risky because the whole chapter switching point of view things exist. But yeah, that is Uncharted Lands by Team Juniper. It's average story. I like it. So this has been Dark Symphony 777, and cut.